The wind moves through the broken city, and dust flies in the air, and old buildings stand like dead trees, and everything feels cold and quiet and strange, and a man walks slowly through the ruins of a place that once had life. His name is Ray, and he is tired and covered in dirt, and his boots hit broken glass and metal as he walks, and in his hand he holds a small scanner that makes soft beeps, and he looks around for anything valuable that he can take back to camp. He used to be a soldier, but now he is just a scavenger, and the war is over, but it left behind many secrets and dangers, and he has seen many strange things in these dead zones, and yet today feels different, and the silence feels heavy like something is watching him. Walks deeper into the wreckage and sees the remains of an alien pod, and it is shaped like a shell, and metal is twisted like soft clay, and something inside glows faint blue, and the scanner in his hand beeps faster as he moves closer. He lifts a metal panel and sees something small move in the corner, and he steps back and raises his old weapon and points it into the dark, and then he hears a voice, soft and shaky and small like a whisper carried by the wind. "Hello." He freezes and lowers his weapon and slowly moves the panel aside, and inside he sees a child, and her skin is pale, and her eyes glow gently like stars, and she is not fully human and not fully alien and something in between, and she looks scared but not hurt. She is sitting with her arms around her knees, and her hair is white and floats slightly like it is underwater, and her clothes are torn and strange, and Ray feels something inside his chest twist like a memory from long ago. She looks up at him with big glowing eyes and says the words that change everything. "Will you be my father?" Ray stands still, and his mouth is dry, and his thoughts run fast, and he thinks maybe this is a trick, maybe a trap, maybe a machine, maybe a dream, but her voice is real and her eyes look into his like she knows him. He steps back and looks around, but there is no one else and no sound except the soft beeping of the scanner and the slow breathing of the girl, and something in her voice feels too human, too broken, too alone. He says nothing and just watches her, and she crawls out slowly and stands, and she is small, maybe 6 or 7 years old if she was human, but she is not, and yet she moves like a child, and her hands are shaking. She takes one step closer, and Ray takes one step back, and his fingers tighten on his weapon, and the girl sees this, and her lips shake, and her voice cracks as she speaks again, softer than before. "Please. I waited so long." Ray feels something strange in his chest again, and he wants to ask, "Who are you, and what are you, and why me?" But he cannot speak, and he feels her fear like it is his own. The scanner in his hand flashes red and shows a symbol he has never seen before, and the numbers spin fast, and he knows this is not normal. This is not safe, and yet he cannot leave her. She falls to her knees and covers her face and makes no sound, and Ray feels the silence grow louder, and he steps forward and kneels beside her and slowly reaches out his hand. She looks up with tearless eyes and touches his hand gently, and he feels a warmth flow into him, not from her skin, but from something inside her, something deep and alive and broken in. That moment he sees flashes in his mind of burning cities and cold stars, and a room full of glass and light where people in white coats speak in fear and pride, and somewhere among them is a name, his name, and a voice says, "Project Aurora." Successful, subject stable, but missing. He pulls his hand back and breathes hard, and the girl looks afraid, like she saw it too, and she whispers something he does not understand, and then says again, "Will you be my father, please?" Ray stands slowly and looks at the ruins around them, and thinks of the war and the blood and the lies and the missions he followed without question, and now this child, this being, this creation stands before him, asking not for safety, not for food, not even for help, but for a father. He hears the sound of a drone far away scanning the zone, and he knows they will come, and they will take her and ask questions later, or maybe not ask at all, and if he leaves now she will be gone forever. Looks down at her and sees not an alien, not a weapon, not a thing, but a child lost and lonely, and he does not understand why, but he cannot walk away. He holds out his hand and she takes it, and they walk into the shadows of the ruined city together, and the scanner in his pocket keeps beeping faster and louder, and he knows this is just the beginning, and something bigger is coming. Still, he does not let go of her hand. Asterisk. The morning sky is heavy with gray clouds, and the air feels still like the world is waiting to breathe, and Ray walks through the forest near the edge of Zone 7 with the strange child beside him and her bare feet move silently over the leaves like she belongs here more than he ever could. Has not spoken much since last night, and she has not asked again about being her father, and still she stays close to him as if she already believes he is the answer to something she has not yet learned to ask. They reach an old bunker hidden under roots and stone, and Ray enters the access code with shaky hands, and the door opens slow and loud, and inside is darkness and dust and silence, but it is safe, and no one knows this place anymore, not even his old unit. The girl steps inside and looks around with curious eyes and touches the walls like they are familiar, and then she sits on a broken chair and waits, and Ray watches her with thoughts full of questions. He cannot speak. He remembers the things he saw when she touched his hand, the memories that were not his, and the image of a lab and a project, and a face in the glass. And he knows she is not just a child, but something made or found or stolen from something far beyond Earth. Ray takes apart his old gear and checks his scanner, and it blinks red and says, "Unidentified signal detected," and it is coming from the forest where they just came from, and he knows this means someone is tracking them. Looks at the girl, and she is quiet and still, and then she says in a soft voice, like she knows the answer already, "They are coming for me, are they not?" Ray does not answer because the truth is louder than any words, and he walks to the entrance and peers into the trees and sees nothing, but he feels something is watching and moving and getting closer. He closes the door and locks it again, and the room falls into silence, and he sits down across from her and asks, "What are you really, and why were you in that ship, and who made you?" Girl tilts her head and says, "I do not remember everything, but I know you were there. I know your face. I know you were not like the others. You did not want me to be used. You tried to stop them, but then the war came and everything ended." Ray does not remember this, and yet deep inside his mind, there are cracks where memories try to rise, and his heart feels heavy with guilt he cannot name and fear he cannot place. She walks over to him and places her hand on his chest and says, "I do not want to be alone again, and I know they will take me and break me and use me and maybe destroy me if you leave me." Ray looks at her and sees not a weapon, not a test subject, not a mistake, but a small voice in a big war, and something in him decides what to do. He gathers supplies quickly and opens the floor panel and leads her into the lower tunnel, which leads away from the bunker and deeper into the forest, and they move fast and quiet and behind them the scanner continues to blink. As they run, Ray hears a low hum in the air, and he stops and pulls the girl down behind a fallen log, and above them a drone floats through the trees with a long red eye, scanning the ground slowly and hunting for heat signatures. Ray holds his breath, and the girl holds his arm, and the drone moves past them and disappears into the fog. Ray knows this is not just a search, this is a kill order, and they are not looking to capture, they are looking to erase. They move again through the trees and find an old rail line that leads to the old city, and Ray decides to follow it even though it is open and dangerous, because there are places to hide in the ruins and maybe answers to. The girl walks without fear, and sometimes she hums a soft tune that sounds like music from a dream, and Ray wonders what kind of mind she holds inside and what kind of soul was planted in her body. They reach the edge of the city by nightfall and find shelter in an abandoned tower, and Ray sets up a small perimeter alarm and sits against the wall with the girl beside him, and for the first time she falls asleep with her head on his arm. Ray stares out at the night and wonders if he is doing the right thing, and if she is meant to save something or destroy something, and maybe both at the same time. In the distance he sees lights in the sky moving too fast to be human, and he knows others are coming, not just drones, and not just men, but something else, something not from Earth, and they are searching for her. Ray closes his eyes, and thinks about war and loyalty and the way the world uses people and forgets them. And he opens his eyes and looks at her and says softly, I will not let them take you, even if the whole world comes. The city sleeps under a blanket of dust, and broken towers stand like skeletons of a forgotten world, and cold wind whistles through shattered windows as if the ghosts of the war still whisper in the dark corners of what remains. Ray wakes with jolt, and his hand moves fast to grab the old rifle beside him, and his heart beats loud in his ears. But there is no sound, no danger, no enemy. Just the quiet breath of the girl sleeping next to him with her head on his shoulder like she belongs. There he looks at her small face glowing faintly in the morning light, and he feels something strange inside his chest, like a door opening to a place he thought was locked forever, and he does not understand why it hurts and comforts at the same time. The last time he let someone this close was long ago, before the war, before everything turned to ash and orders and silence. And now here is this child, not fully human, not fully alien, asking for something he never thought he could give again. She opens her eyes slowly and looks at him with trust and calm, and says good morning like it is the most normal thing in the world. And Ray nods without words and hands her a piece of dry ration, and she eats with quiet joy like it is a gift. They walk through the ruins later, and the girl hums again that same soft tune that sounds like sunlight on water, and Ray listens without speaking and wonders where she learned it, or if she created it herself without even knowing. They reach an old metro station buried under the rubble, and Ray leads her down into the shadows with his flashlight flickering on old tracks and graffiti and twisted metal. And the silence down here feels like a secret inside an old train car. Ray opens a metal box filled with old maps, batteries, and a small data reader, and he plugs in the device and shows her a map of safe zones and restricted areas, and asks if anything looks familiar. The girl stares at the screen with wide eyes and touches a blinking red zone near the mountains and says softly, I came from here, I think, but everything is broken in my head, like pieces of a dream that someone tried to erase. Ray looks at the red zone and remembers it was a black site used during the war for off-record experiments and special projects, and no one talks about it anymore, not even in whispers. He does not tell her that her memories might be locked on purpose, or that the people who made her might want her gone for what she knows, because in that moment he sees her as a child again, lost and full of questions. Later they sit in the car while rain falls heavy above, and the girl asks Ray, what is it like to have a family? And he takes a long breath and says, I used to have one a long time ago, before I became someone else. She nods like she understands more than her words show, and asks, why do fathers leave? And Ray looks away and says, sometimes they think they have to, sometimes they are afraid, sometimes they are already gone inside, even if they are still breathing. She reaches out and takes his hand and says, I do not want to be left behind. And Ray feels her touch like light through ice, and he does not know how to promise her anything, and still he stays. That night she touches an old photo in his bag, a picture of him in uniform, and a woman beside him, and a little boy who looked like him, and when her fingers brush the photo, something happens. Ray sees his own memory again, but not just his vision. He feels it like it is happening now, the warmth, the laughter, the moment before it all ended, and the girl sees it too, her eyes wide with wonder and sadness. She looks at him and says, I felt it, your pain and your love, and I think I can feel more if you let me. And Ray pulls his hand away, unsure, afraid of how much she can see, but she does not push. She only says, I think I was made to understand you, not just to live near you, but to learn from you and be part of you, like a piece of your story that got lost. Ray stands and walks to the door of the train and looks out into the tunnels, and hears something far away like metal scraping on stone, and he knows they cannot stay long. Someone or something is getting closer. He turns to her and says, we move at sunrise, and she nods without fear and lies down again and closes her eyes. And Ray watches her and thinks about bonds, not made by blood, but by choice and by time and by pain, shared without words. Does not know if she was built or born or something in between, but he knows she is real because she feels and hopes and holds on to him like he matters, and in this broken world, maybe that is enough. Maybe that is everything asterisk. The morning begins without light as gray clouds cover the broken sky, and cold wind pushes through empty streets and shattered glass glows faintly in puddles, and Ray walks fast with the girl beside him through the ruins of what was once a human research base, now dead and buried beneath silence and fear. Girl walks quietly, but her eyes search the world like she is trying to remember something hidden behind a locked door inside her mind, and Ray holds the old map tighter in his hand as they step over burned cables and fallen beams and shattered signs, with warnings in red that once meant danger but now mean nothing. They reach the edge of the old control tower where the steel is melted and twisted like wax, and Ray finds the entrance behind a broken crate and leads her inside, and they move down into the dark like shadows slipping between cracks, and the air smells of rust and dust and forgotten screams. Ray turns on his light and sees the door marked Lab Unit, still half open, and inside is a world frozen in time, computers and wires and data cores and shattered screens and dried blood near a broken chair where something once lived or died. He walks to the main console and wipes the dust from the screen and powers up the core with a small portable cell, and lights flicker and systems hum, and one by one files begin to wake from sleep, and names and numbers roll across the screen like memories trying to return. Girl stands beside him and stares at the screen with wide eyes, and she whispers, "This place, it feels like I have been here before in a dream I forgot." As soon as I open my eyes, Ray searches the files and types her name, or what he thinks is her name, and the word Aurora appears on the screen with a code marked classified and another marked genetic pattern match found, and Ray feels his blood turn cold. He opens the match file and sees a DNA strand spinning on the screen, and then beside it another one, and both connect and align perfectly, and under them the words appear: primary donor identified subject Raymond Calalia. Ray steps back and stares at the screen and cannot move and cannot speak, and the girl looks at him and says, "What does it mean?" And he looks at her with shaking hands and a face full of old pain and new fear. He whispers softly, not to her, but maybe to himself, "They used me. They used my blood. They used my body. They created you, not born, not grown, not found, but made from me, and something else from something not of this earth." She sits slowly on the ground and touches her chest and says in a small voice, "Then, who am I and why was I made?" And Ray has no answer, only questions that scream louder than any words. He checks deeper into the system and finds video logs, broken and corrupted, but one still plays, and on the screen, a man in a white coat speaks to the camera and says, "Subject is stable. Subject is learning fast. Emotional response is high. We used Raymond Keller's DNA due to psychological profile and past performance, and he never knew, never signed anything, and it is better that way." Ray turns off the video and feels like the air is gone from the room, and the girl looks up at him and says, "You were part of me before I even opened my eyes, and that is why I knew your face and your voice and your sadness, and why I asked you to stay." Ray kneels beside her and says, "I do not know what they wanted from you or from me, but you are not theirs anymore. You are not a tool or a project or a secret. You are just you, and that is enough." She reaches out and touches his face, and he lets her, and in that moment, there is no machine, no war, no mission, only silence and warmth, and something that feels like healing in a world full of ruins. The console beeps again, and Ray sees another file open on its own, a warning code marked asset located, and a signal ping sent to an unknown satellite, and he knows their time is almost gone, and they have been seen. He shuts everything down fast and grabs what he can and tells her, "We move now, no questions," and she nods and follows without fear, and together they climb out into the gray world again, with the truth now burning in their minds. As they leave the base behind, a small drone lifts from the trees far away and begins to follow, silent and invisible to the human eye, and somewhere in a place where Stars are watched by cold minds. A message arrives that the subject has been found and retrieval must begin. Ray holds her hand as they move through the ruins, and he knows everything has changed. And yet he feels more sure than ever, because now he knows what she is and still chooses to stay, not because of what made her, but because of what she became. The night air is sharp and dry, and the stars above seem farther away than ever, and Ray walks with quiet steps through the grasslands on the outer edge of Sector 12, where the city lights no longer reach, and silence lives in every corner like a waiting breath. The girl walks beside him with her hood up and her eyes focused on the ground, and she has not spoken much since the truth was found inside the ruins, and Ray has not pushed her to speak because he too carries the weight of that truth. Like a stone in his chest, each hour that passes feels heavier and colder, and he checks the scanner again, and always the signal behind them grows stronger, like something patient and relentless, like something that already knows where they will go next. They reach a broken highway and walk along its edge under the old sign that reads, Exit 17 to Haven, and Ray knows that Haven does not exist anymore, only shadows and secrets remain, and maybe a few ghosts waiting for answers they never got. The girl stops and looks at him and asks, if I was made from you, then do I have to become like you? And Ray wants to answer, but does not know what the right words are, so he says, you do not have to be anything but who you are, and that is enough. They sleep in an old train station that smells of rust and time, and Ray dreams of his old squad, of gunfire, of missions gone wrong, of orders followed and never questioned, and of a voice telling him, this is necessary, this is bigger than you. And now he wonders what that really meant. When he wakes, he finds a message blinking on his old comlink, a code used by people he hoped never to see again, and a voice plays cold and familiar saying, we know where you are, Ray, we know what you found, we can help you if you bring her in. We do not want to hurt her, we want to protect her from what is coming. Ray listens in silence and deletes the message and walks outside and sees the girl watching the sky, where 3 lights move in perfect circles above the clouds, and she says they are not drones, they are alive, and they are waiting. Wants to tell her everything, but fear ties his tongue, and the truth feels like fire, and he does not want her to see the part of him that still doubts, the part of him that wonders, what if they are right? What if she is dangerous? What if he is not enough to protect her later? They reach the edge of a small human camp made of scrap and solar cloth, and Ray meets with an old contact named Lynn, who used to run Black Ops during the war, and now trades information like it is gold. And Lynn looks at the girl and says, this is her then, the project that never died, the ghost. The key. Ray says she is not a project, and not a key, and Lynn laughs without smiling, says maybe, but she is not just a girl, and the world will not care about her feelings, only about what she can do, and what she might become. Lynn offers them safe passage out of the zone in exchange for coordinates, and Ray agrees, because he has no better plan, but inside he feels the edges of something sharp and wrong, like a trap hidden under soft ground. That night the girl wakes and says, you lied to me, your mind is loud even when your mouth is not. I saw it, I felt it, you were going to give me to them. And Ray feels her words like knives and says, I only wanted to keep you safe. And she replies, you wanted to keep yourself safe from what? I am. She runs before he can stop her and disappears into the dark, and Ray follows shouting her name through the ruins and the cold and the fog, but she does not answer, and he finds only her small bracelet lying on a broken stair. Glowing faint blue. Ray falls to his knees and breathes like he is drowning, and for the first time in years he feels helpless, truly and fully lost. And then behind him he hears boots on stone and turns to see men in gray armor with no faces and no names, and guns that hum with quiet death. They say, come with us, and no one gets hurt. And Ray stands with shaking hands and says, you do not understand what she is. And they say, we understand more than you think. And one of them lifts a small control box and says, she is not lost, she's coming home. Ray pulls his weapon and fires before he even thinks, and the world explodes with noise and light and screams and fire, and above all of it, He hears her voice inside his mind, not afraid, not angry, just tired, saying, "You should have trusted me." As the smoke clears and silence returns, Ray lies in the dirt with blood on his arm and ash in his eyes, and the girl stands above him, not smiling, not crying, only watching, and she says, "I came back because I chose to, not because you deserve it, but because I am more than what they made." And Ray knows the line between betrayal and protection is thinner than breath. The sky is not the same anymore. It glows with silent colors that do not belong to Earth, and the clouds twist like threads of light and shadow, and something deep in the air hums like a slow warning. And Ray stands on the roof of a broken tower with the girl beside him, and both of them watching the sky that watches back. The girl is quiet, as if listening to something far away, and Ray knows she hears more than he ever could, because her eyes follow shapes in the clouds that he cannot see, and her fingers move like she is tracing signals in the wind behind. Then the city is silent, like a graveyard of steel and concrete and memory, and only the wind speaks now, carrying the smell of smoke and metal and something older than war, something waiting to return. Ray checks the scanner and sees the symbols again, not human, not military, just a pulse of light that moves in rhythm like a heartbeat, and he knows it is not a machine, it is a message. And it is getting closer. The girl turns to him and says they are not angry, they are afraid, and Ray looks at her and asks who, and she replies, the ones above, the ones who sent the seed, the ones who made peace once and broke it later, the ones who called me a mistake and now call me a threat. Ray lowers his head and says, "I do not want another war," and she looks into his eyes and says, "Maybe this war never ended, maybe it only waited." They move through the streets now, broken and burnt and empty, and every step feels heavier, as if the ground remembers what happened here, what was built and what was lost. And Ray remembers the first wave and the fire that fell from the sky, and the screams that never stop. They reach an old outpost near the hills, and inside is a machine still working, hidden and humming, and Ray powers it up and places the girl's hand on the interface, and light bursts from the walls, and the system unlocks with no resistance, as if it always knew. Her data floods the screen, images of planets and ships and codes in 2 languages, human and something else, and in the center a file labeled Project Unity. And Ray opens it and sees a face he has not seen in years, a scientist named Voss, who vanished before the war ended. Voss speaks in the recording and says, "We tried to build peace with code, with DNA, with understanding. We used Keller's genetic map because he was stable, focused, and strong, and we combined it with alien memory tech to create a bridge, a living treaty, a being who could feel both sides and carry both truths." He continues, "But the war came too fast. The leaders grew afraid. The girl was hidden before she could choose her path, and now if she is found again, they will call her weapon or savior, and either way they will try to own her or destroy her." Ray closes the file and looks at her, and she says, "I do not want to be either. I just want to choose my own way." But before he can answer, the tower shakes and a beam of red light strikes the ground outside, and Ray rushes to the window and sees a ship above them, not like the others, smooth and silent and alive, like something breathing in the sky. More ships appear in the distance, and they do not fire, yet they only watch, and Ray knows they are waiting for something, maybe for her, maybe for a signal, and he wonders if Earth already sent it. The girl steps forward and her eyes glow brighter than before, and she says, "They will not talk to you, they will only talk to me." And Ray asks, "Why?" And she replies, "Because I am both of them and neither of them, and I am the last voice they will hear before they choose to burn this world or leave it." Ray wants to stop her, wants to protect her, wants to hold her hand and run away again, but the sky will not let them, and the moment is here, and hiding is no longer enough. She walks into the light and lifts her hand, and her voice echoes without sound across the space between Earth and sky, and the ships respond with shapes in the clouds and pulses of light, and in that strange quiet language a conversation begins. Ray watches and does not understand the words, but he understands the feeling, like something old is waking, like history is being rewritten in real time, and he wonders If they will survive what comes next, then the ground trembles, and behind them human jets roar into the sky, weapons armed, orders clear, and Ray hears the sound of humanity's answer, and it is fear, and it is fire, and it is the same mistake again. Girl looks back at him once, and there is sadness in her face and also strength, and she says, I will stop this. I must stop this, not for them, but for me and for you, and for what we could still become. And Ray nods because he has nothing left to give. Except belief. She rises into the air, carried by light and memory and meaning, and as the sky burns above and the world holds its breath, Ray stands alone and waits to see if this time will be different. The world holds its breath as the sky above turns to fire and thunder, and light moves through clouds like rivers of electricity, and high above the ground, the girl floats with her arms open and her eyes glowing like suns that remember everything. Lost in everything that could still be saved, Ray watches from the rooftop of a broken hospital with wind ripping through shattered windows and heat pressing against his skin like the edge of a silent scream, and he does not blink because this moment is too full, too final, too much like the end and beginning at the same time. Human jets streak across the sky, leaving trails of smoke, like scars across the heavens, and above them, the alien ships do not move, they only wait like old gods. Deciding if the world below is worth the cost of mercy, Ray grips his rifle, not to use it, but to hold on to something real and solid as the air begins to tremble, and the girl speaks. Without sound, her voice carried in pulses of light and waves of thought, and the ships hear her, and the earth hears her, and something in the deep silence of the sky listens too. She tells them she is not their tool, not their mistake, not their final weapon. She tells them she is a choice made by both sides, by hands that knew fear and hope at the same time. She tells them she belongs to no one, and that the war can only end when someone chooses not to fight. And still the missiles launch from the ground with cold fire in their bellies, and the alien ships open like flowers of steel and stars. And Ray screams her name, not because she cannot hear him, but because he cannot bear the weight of what comes next. Girl lifts her hand and light pours from her fingers like wind and memory, and it catches the missiles midday and unbuilds them, turns them into dust and sparks and silence. And still she does not fall, still she does not break. Still she believes. The alien ships begin to move, and Ray thinks it is over, thinks they have decided to finish what they started, and he runs toward her, not knowing what he will do, only knowing he must be near her when it happens, whatever it is. Before he can reach her, she looks down and her voice fills his mind, soft and full of all the moments they shared, and she says, you stayed with me when I had no name and no answers and no one else. And now I stay with them because they are afraid like I was, and maybe if I show them my heart, they will see their own. The ships slow and hover, and one of them descends gently to the earth for the first time since the war began, and the people of Earth watch from screens and rooftops and bunkers. And they do not understand what they are seeing, but they feel it in their bones that something has changed. Girl floats down like light falling into water, and stands between the ship and the soldiers and raises both hands and says, enough, not with anger, not with power, but with sorrow and truth, and everything becomes still like the world itself is holding a breath that has lasted for years. The ship opens and a being steps out, tall and strange and beautiful in a way not made for human eyes, and it looks at her, and then at Ray, and then at the sky, and then it kneels. Slowly, not in surrender, but in recognition. Ray walks to her side, bleeding and tired and unsure of what tomorrow will bring, and she reaches out and takes his hand, and he takes hers, and they stand there together as the sun begins to rise behind smoke and shadow, and for the first time in a long time it feels like a beginning. The being speaks in light and tone, and she translates softly. It says, we feared what we did not understand, and we ran from what we created, and now we see that peace was always possible if we had listened instead of led with fear. Ray looks at her and says, you did it, and she shakes her head and says, we did it, and he knows that what she means is more than the two of them. What she means is every choice, every step, every moment that led to now later the ship's rise. without sound and vanish into the light of a new morning, and no missile follows them, no order chases them, no hand reaches for a weapon, and the world watches and waits and begins to believe again. Ray and the girl walk through the quiet streets of a city that once burned and now only smolders, and people come out slowly from hiding, and no one says anything because no words are enough for what they witness. They find a bench under an old tree that somehow still stands and sit there without speaking, and after a while she leans her head on his shoulder like she did in the beginning, and he closes his eyes and lets the silence wrap around them like peace. She looks up at him once more with those glowing little eyes and says in a soft voice full of everything they survived, "Thank you for staying." And he smiles, the first real smile in years, and says, "I always would." Because, in the end, she was never just a mission or a mystery, she was a daughter.